Hello and welcome to the Hard Questions. I'm Serwanja. It is certainly heating up as Uganda readies for 2026. Speaking of which, the Electoral Commission recently announced its roadmap to 2026, asking about 1.3 trillion shillings to conduct a successful, free and fair election. Among others, they have set dates including the demarcation of electoral areas, and their target is July 2024, updating the voters register January 2025. The presidential nominations will be held on the 2nd of October and the 3rd of October, as well as the elections in January, to be specific, 12th to February the 9th of 2026. With me on the show today is the chairperson of the Electoral Commission, Justice Simon Byabakama. And really, it's been an honor hosting you. Thank you very much for honoring our invitation today, Justice Simon Byabakama.
Thank you, Solomon.
Are you ready for 2026?
As usual.
Are you really ready?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I saw you when you met the Prime Minister and detailing the roadmap to 2026 and asking for 1.3 trillion shillings. What will it take you to have a free and fair elections come 2026?
Well, thank you, Solomon. First of all, an election does not only involve the Electoral Commission. It involves various stakeholders. But the key criteria is the law. Everyone who is involved in an election must follow the laws governing the elections and other processes. So first and foremost, what it requires is every stakeholder to be law-abiding. Secondly, it requires every citizen who has a stake in the electoral process to be included in every activity that is rolled out by the Electoral Commission. Thirdly, it involves, I think, the resolve of every Ugandan in this country who is a voter and who has, again, a stake in this country to resolve individually and at national level that we are going to have peace during this electoral process. And then we must have the resources. That's very critical. We must have the requisite resources in order for us to organize a credible, free, fair, and fair election, which involves so many activities, and in a timely manner. You may have the resources, but if they are released belatedly, then that impacts on the smooth implementation of the roadmap. But critically, an election involves every stakeholder in the country.
It's it involves indeed so many stakeholders. And you mentioned the aspect of the law. And at the launch of the roadmap, the Prime Minister, Nabanja, said that all electoral laws will be done before the end of the financial year 2023-2024. Are you presenting any electoral reforms? Are there some suggestions that you want to present for electoral reforms as the Electoral Commission to the executive to work on first and present before Parliament?
Well, Solomon, after every electoral cycle, we look at the various observer reports and also take into account the court decisions where certain matters may have been under consideration or adjudicated upon, which have a legislative aspect by way of improving the way elections need to be conducted. So at every electoral cycle, the Electoral Commission looks through the observer reports, we look through the court decisions, and other factors which we may also have realized need improvement by way of legislation. Then we also make our proposals. In fact, as we talk now, next week we are having some kind of retreat to look at all the possible reforms, and then we can forward them to the relevant authorities. But we also call upon other stakeholders, if they have any areas where they feel that the law needs to be either amended or we need an enactment, also to make those proposals. We prefer as a commission that this be done at least 2 years before the onset of the elections.
As recommended by the Supreme Court?
Absolutely, as recommended by the Supreme Court, for reasons that the commission, as the key implementer of all electoral processes, needs ample time to analyze and implement or actualize these new laws or amendments such that we do not have a dichotomy in the way the roadmap is being rolled out and implemented. So that's why we say it's very critical.
Yeah, it's very critical indeed. For any election to be a free and fair election, there's one thing that really stands out, and that's an independent electoral commission. Do you consider yourself an independent electoral commission besides just the name that was amended in the Electoral Commissions Act? Is your commission that you lead an independent electoral commission?
Absolutely. Anyone who has a contrary opinion should come forward and give the reasons. You see, the problem in this country is people tend to depend on generalities without going into the specifics. If you say the commission is not independent, can you point out those aspects where that independence is lacking or wanting? They don't give you. For us, we insist and maintain, one, our independence is derived from the Constitution. It's the Constitution which clearly spells out that in the execution of our duties, we shall not be subject to the direction or authority of any entity or any person. And secondly, I'm not scared of my security of tenure. My security of tenure as a chairperson and even members of the commission is guaranteed by the Constitution. It is a 7-year tenure. So people say, but you know, because you are appointed in this manner, and therefore that undermines your independence. That's not correct. If you look at the way we perform and function, everything is grounded in the fact that we are independent. But if you have a contrary opinion with empirical evidence, come forward and present it.
Justice Byabakama, let's talk about the appointment of the commissioners, including yourself, commissioners, including yourself. You were appointed by the head of state. Of course, you go through parliament for vetting. Eventually, you're given the job. How do you tell me that you can actually conduct an election without any bias from the appointing authority?
Why not? First of all, the appointing authority does not act on his whims. He's going by the Constitution, which is the Constitution which lays down the procedures or processes by which the chairperson, members of the commission can be appointed. Secondly, as you have said, we are subjected to the vetting process of parliament. That parliament, my understanding, is not a rubber stamp. It can say yes or no. I think there have been some appointments which parliament has turned down in the past by the appointing authority. I think there was some nominees for ministerial positions who were turned down. So to me, that process is sufficient, that there is transparency in the way the appointment is done. And second, and most importantly, yes, you are appointed by this individual.
Who is also an incumbent.
Who is also an incumbent.
In an election.
Who may come as a candidate, or who in the past has been coming as a candidate. But what drives the relationship between this person and the Electoral Commission and its work is the law. For instance, he too is subjected to the same nomination process like any other candidate. And I think you have seen on nomination day, we also give him his own vehicle for his security, like any other candidate. Secondly, the criteria that he has to comply with is the same. Thirdly, when it comes to campaigns, he too must be subjected to the same regulations governing the campaigns for presidential candidates, like any other person. And if we say campaigns stop at 6, he too must stop his campaigns at 6. Like in the last elections when we said every candidate must observe the SOPs and not hold mass rallies, he had to comply. So can you show us that because the person who appoints you turns out at one point to be a candidate, and therefore you are biased towards this individual? What is that evidence? Precisely
my point. So there are those that think that that actually is one of the ways that the playing field is not leveled, that you appoint the chairperson of the Electoral Commission and other commissioners who are presiding over an election where you're a candidate. Let's cross over to neighboring Kenya. We know, I know, as you also know, the vetting processes that the people who chair the IEBC, the scrutiny that they go through to present a semblance of a fair electoral commission. They apply, they do public interviews, they are subjected to all the processes to present a semblance of a free and fair election. Do you think that that's something that we can adopt as a country?
But it's good you have referred to Kenya. You look at what, apart from the process, because the process is not the end in itself, I think what we are interested in basically is the outcome of this process, how did the commission conduct its business given the more transparent manner the members were appointed? You all know what happened. You know what happened in Kenya. One, I think there was total disharmony in the commission. Two, I think there was total disagreement, even on that critical day, the day of declaring the results. There was disharmony. Three, I think some people even refused to continue being part of that process.
And maybe that's what creates an independence of sorts, that you shouldn't all agree to the results. But that's something different.
Look,
I wanted us, Chair, to focus on a semblance of an independent electoral commission.
Yes.
You have a referee who is appointed by one of the players to come and referee a game or manage a game where he is a player.
Yes.
Is that fair?
But look here, Solomon, I have told you, apart from looking at that aspect in a more general terms, the question is, how does the commission conduct its business based in the Constitution in relation or in regard to this particular individual? How does the commission give him undue advantage over the other person? Or does it give him undue advantage in the first instance? Does it disfavor the other candidates in the way it conducts its business as far as these elections are concerned? What is it? Let's go be analytical. You know, for me, I'm a lawyer. I want, before I come to a conclusion, I would like to look at the facts, I would like to look at the empirical evidence, and then say, on account of this conduct, on account of this decision, it explains why, it explains the mode of your appointment. But where is it? People just have those perceptions, but how can you really organize elections in a transparent manner involving somebody who appointed you, and then supposing it doesn't go through, will you declare? The commission can only declare what is derived from the polling stations. And what is derived from the polling stations is what the voters have willfully proclaimed by thumbprinting or ticking the candidate of their choice. That's what the commission does.
As a lawyer and a student of political science, do you think that this law needs to be amended?
Well, you see, let me tell you, Solomon, the law is not static. And I think the citizens of the country reserve every right at any time to say, this law no longer serves us the purposes for which we want it to be there. Now, it's not for me, therefore, to speak on behalf of the Ugandans, that this law serves you right.
You were Ugandan.
Yes, I'm a Ugandan, but I'm one voice. The Ugandans have their representatives in the parliament. And that's why democracy, that's the beauty of democracy. You have representatives. If the people of Uganda feel this law no longer serves the purpose, then it can be amended.
Justice Byabakama, do you as a Ugandan think that this law needs to be amended?
Basing on the experience of other people, all right, whom you have referred to, I think it's not per se the mode of appointment. What informs the practical aspects of your independence is the way you decide to conduct your business. Do you have those indications that indeed you acted independently in this instance? Because you might be appointed through this transparent process, and yet you choose not to act independently. Look, let me refer to this example. We go to these churches. I can see you are married. We go and make all these vows before the priest and so on. I will stick to you and only you. Then what happens 1 month down the road? You are going elsewhere. So making vows, following the processes is one thing. The choice, the decisions we make as human beings to follow those processes is another thing. So you might be appointed, you could be appointed, or the commission could be appointed in that so-called transparent manner. But when it comes to the decision-making process of the commissioners, they may not act independently. But for us, we are saying that the fact of the manner of appointment does not impair or impinge on our quest to act independently. It does not at all. So whether the law is amended or not, the issue is, will the people live up to the billing of deciding to act independently or not?
There are people who have presented evidence that because of that, the Electoral Commission has failed to deliver
Where
fair
is the
election.
independence?
I'll point you to one of them.
Please.
When you look at the analytics of the results that you presented to the Ugandans in the previous election, there were over 400 polling stations that had 100% voter turnout. Let me break it down for you. Throughout all these 400 polling stations, President Yoweri Museveni polled about 161,000 votes in these different polling stations. Except three, President Museveni actually won most of these polling stations. And these polling stations were scattered all across about 29 districts. Isingiro district had the highest number of polling stations with 100% voter turnout, followed by Chirihura, followed by Kazo. Such 100% voter turnout, it means no one fell sick, no one did not turn up, no one, and then a single candidate is actually winning by far in over 400 polling stations. These are results from the Electoral Commission. Chairman, how do you explain that?
Do you know what we did to those polling stations? For example, Isingiro, we cancelled the results from all those polling stations where the voter turnout was alleged to be 100% plus and so on. We cancelled them. I wish I'd come, if I'd known this question was coming, I would have come with that evidence. What does that demonstrate? You have stated that these votes were in favor of President Museveni. We cancelled them.
All of them?
Yes, we cancelled them. We cancelled them. I could bring you evidence. We cancelled those polling stations. At least I remember, particularly Singiro, we cancelled those polling stations. What does that suggest to you? Is that conduct of a person who is independent or not independent?
What did your investigations show after the cancelling?
A polling station is in the hands of people the commission recruits on temporary terms. Because a general election covering the entire country cannot be run by the permanent members of the commission, the staff and the commission alone. You very well know, Solomon, that on polling day, we need so many, over 300,000. You need the presiding officer at the polling station. You need the polling officials, the one managing this biometric identification kit, the one who is inking and so on and so forth. So many. Now, these people, probably out of intentional conduct, they have results which exceed, which are 100% plus, okay? Now, when we get reports about these aspects, what we do, one, we find out how did this happen? How did this happen? You cannot say that all the registered voters this polling station turned up. And even at times it is beyond that number. So we investigate, and if we find that someone was culpable, we take action.
Chair, what did your investigation show you? Because then, from this, you get then learning lessons that perhaps, how could this be? What lessons did you learn from those polling stations?
Well, I think the critical thing is collusion. That's one of the critical things, collusion between maybe the agents. Because remember, each candidate is entitled to 2 agents per polling station. In the last election, we had how many presidential candidates? Were there about 10? Now, those are supposedly 20 agents at a polling station to cater for the interests of their candidate. Now, really, if we are 20 agents at polling station, how can this kind of scenario occur? So we think it's collusion. Now, if your agents is colluding with others, remember, mind you, the chairman of the Electoral Commission and the commissioners are the National Tally Center. The returning officer is at the district tally center. We cannot afford to go in the field. But in a by-election, maybe that is a different story. So really, it's collusion. And that's why we are saying that, look, stakeholders, can you also play a role in accordance with the law? So
this, from what you're saying, candidate Museveni colluded because he won 100%.
I'm talking of collusion by the people at the polling station.
to show that candidate Museveni won by 100%.
We are talking of collusion.
It's unheard of.
By the people managing the processes at that polling station. Because remember, they are in charge of the ballot box at that polling station. The presiding officer is in charge of the ballot box, okay? They are in charge of the BBVK equipment and every financial.
So how could all those systems be beaten that the final results that the Electoral Commission has on their data presents that?
Yes, now going forward, those are the things we look into as the Electoral Commission After the elections, we sit down, we analyze what transpired in different places, and then we establish what exactly happened and what is the way forward, because you remember we are now already gearing towards 2026. How do we avoid the repeat of this kind of scenario?
Especially that there's involvement of technology.
Yes.
You have people who you said have to come and be present and actually be verified by the technology on the ground. It means that the technology would have captured that. It is not possible that technology missed that.
But Solomon, technology does not operate itself. It's operated by human beings.
What you're saying is there are people within the Electoral Commission who are manipulating the technology in favor of a candidate.
There are people. I'm responding to the issue of what happens. How can this be that you have 100% voters turn up or beyond? We are saying that the human beings at that polling stations are the ones who manipulate the systems and create this kind of scenario. You have the technology, fine. You have the biometric voter kit at the station, fine. Now, if you are not required by the operator to put your thumbprint and you are simply given a ballot paper, that's the kind of collusion we are talking about. Technology is there, the kit is there, but there must be someone commanding you, Solomon, can you put your thumbprint now on the screen so that you're identified biometrically? Solomon, this kit does not identify you as a voter here. You are voting for another polling station, or you have already voted from polling station X. What are you doing here? But if the people say, give Solomon, there's no problem. So we are talking of collusion. We are talking of the human element. The human element is a critical factor in having a free and fair election, in spite of the technology that you have.
It really was unfortunate, especially with the numbers that you presented.
But we cancelled those polling stations.
Yeah, I think it's a lesson. We'll be seeing whether this will happen again. We'll be closely monitoring, but it really was one of the highlights of last year's elections, having over 400 polling stations with 100% voter turnout in favor of
I'm not
the
sure
incumbent.
about the number of polling stations, but what I know for definitely is that for single, we cancelled those polling stations.
Okay. Let's talk about the transmission of elections, because anyway, we are talking about this. You say that this system can... How did the Electoral Commission transmit elections without the internet? Maybe today is an opportunity for you to tell Ugandans, how did the Electoral Commission transmit results without the internet?
But that shows that we are organized and we are smart. We know what we are doing. We knew what we were doing. First of all, yes, in an election, elections in this country have taken on the aura of life and death, which is rather unfortunate. And therefore, you cannot rule out some people trying to do anything under the sun to make sure that they sail through. So as a commission, we prepare for all these exigencies. And we also prepare that in the event there's a problem with the internet, what would we do? Do we wait for it to be fixed and then we resume? By the way, Solomon, let me remind you that Uganda is probably one of the few countries which have a very limited time frame within which to declare the outcome of an election. 48 hours. In other countries, I think it is 1 week, 7 days, and so on. You got 48 hours. If you have a disruption in the transmission system on account of a failure or whatever it is over the internet, for even 3 or 4 hours, you are heading for a crisis. Remember, the law, the Constitution does not give me, as chairperson or as a commission, an option or a leeway or flexibility to declare beyond 48 hours. The moment you clock the 48-hour deadline without declaring, you have created a humongous crisis in the country. So we say, to avoid all these pitfalls, let us create our own system of transmitting the results. And I can assure you, we did, and if need be, we shall continue to do that. But let me ask you, did anyone ever say that because the internet was shut down or closed, what the commission transmitted was therefore not authentic? Because I've told you, what is transmitted to the tally centers, either at the district or national level, is from the polling stations. the 34 or 35,000 polling stations across the country. They didn't want to say that because the system was closed or the internet was closed, therefore the results were not the correct ones. But you see, as usual, people can take generalities. Hey, the internet was closed. Therefore, what Byabakama was reading was unknown even to himself. They didn't want to come forward to say that indeed, because of the shutting down of the internet, the results you were reading at Kyambogo were not genuine.
How could they verify at the time? Because you look, people would leverage the power of the internet to actually share. Take a picture, send a WhatsApp, send information to themselves and share information. All that was done. Like we were in the dark age, Justice Byabakama. People could not share information from the polling stations to their to their teams that had set up maybe alternative tally centers to monitor the elections that were coming through. All that we could just only believe the Electoral Commission without any opportunity to actually check that out.
Solomon.
So do you encourage, therefore, for the internet to be shut down?
No, it's not. I don't, because I'm not responsible for shutting down the internet, to manage the internet. I'm not. I'm only saying for us as a commission, we prepare for any eventuality. But let me tell you, on this critical issue you have raised, we declare after 48 hours. The law says that after polling has closed at 4 p.m. or thereabouts, the next activity is counting of the votes in aggregated manner. Candidate Solomon, so many. Candidate Simon, so many. Candidate Paul, so many. At that polling station. And after the counting has been concluded, then there is that document, the famous document, the Declaration of Results form, which is at every polling station in about 9 copies, or depending on the candidates, can even be 20. And the results at that polling station are supposed to be captured by the presiding officer on that form, in the presence of the agents or observers who might be around. When the counting and the recording has been concluded, the agents of the candidates are required to affix their signatures, to sign that form, to confirm this document represents what has happened here. Then, most importantly, the law says each candidate is entitled to a copy of the DR form from this polling station, each candidate, through their agents. So we give you, and mind you, in most cases, polling and counting is supposed to be, we prefer it to be concluded before darkness sets in. Because when darkness sets in, you never know. Now, the agent walks away with the copy of the DR form for his or her candidate. Now, in this information technology era, with these modern phones people have, what do you do? Capture. You flash, you call it what? You take a snapshot of the DR form, you forward it to your candidate. And you realize by the time the Electoral Commission comes to give the final declaration 48 hours after, every candidate is aware of what they have scored from each polling station.
Justice Byabakama, the internet was off.
Okay, fine, I get you. But fine, the internet was off. Let me ask you a question. You are in possession of the physical DR form. Were the DR forms also denied to the candidates? They had possession of the DR form, isn't it? That is one. Secondly, if at the end of the declaration, you have aggregated your the results on the DR forms in your position, and you find that Byabakama has declared a different thing, run to court and say, you know what? Don't believe that man. Here is the evidence. They are the ones who gave us these forms, and yet what he has declared is a different picture altogether. You run to court.
Justice Byabakama, you're complaining that you're given 48 hours to deliver.
No, I'm not complaining. I'm stating
you say,
fact.
Yeah, it's a fact, but it's also a complaint that you don't have enough time to actually do all this. How much time do these teams have to actually present a petition before court?
The period was amended. Initially, it used to be 10 days.
It used to be 10 days?
Yes. In 2020, that's one of the recommendations, that the period given to petitioners to file petitions is short. It was amended 15 days. So, 15 days. So there was that period which was given to the petitioners or aggrieved candidates. To us, that's an improvement. Did anyone say we have failed to file the petition because the time given is not enough? Or in the last one, it was withdrawn? Was it withdrawn because the time given under the law was not adequate?
Well, that was a court issue. But I wanted to come back to the issue that you mentioned of, so you had your online
Yes, we had our own system.
How could we check it?
Check it.
So it was exclusive to you?
Yeah, it was exclusive to EC only.
So basically the Electoral Commission was not, it was exclusive?
It was exclusive. I can't say that. It was exclusive. How we set it up, that is ours.
And how we would check that it's true?
If you want to check how true it is, look at the DR forms for each candidate. Candidate so and so. What did you get from this polling station? What did you get from the polling stations in this district? What did you look at the DR form? And let's also go to the other. And mind you, another thing I want to, you remember in the last elections, we even set up screens at every tally center in the districts where the results were being streamed live. Even at the National Tally Center, the results were being streamed live on these screens. So compare with those. Then you come and tell us what you streamed, moreover, through a system we would not understand, since the internet was closed, is not authentic. Nobody has ever come forward. Because they know that what we declared at the tally center was correct.
And yet you cancelled some elections from Isingiro for 100% turnout.
That's why. But that one shows that, yes, we are alive and mindful of every aspect at every polling station. The moment we question the results at polling station, for which there is no credible explanation, we cancel, irrespective of who.
I hope so. Let's shift gears and talk about the candidates in this election, principally presidential elections. The nomination of Patrick Amuriat was quite a shame in the previous elections. Then we went into the
Why
polling.
was it a shame?
You know what happened to him?
Because of being Mugurupa, barefoot.
Not only that, the guy was arrested, by police. He had to make it to the polling station. Let's go fast forward to the violence that happened to opposition political candidates,
Yes.
who we thought that the Electoral Commission swore to actually protect during the electoral process. You failed on them.
No, we did not.
You did fail.
We did not.
They beat up candidates.
For reasons. One,
Police conducted the worst violence. We saw a worst violent election to opposition political leaders. We thought that the Electoral Commission would stand up and defend the people under their wings. You didn't.
one, we condemn violence in whatever form during electoral processes and activities. It's most unfortunate. Elections are an exercise in democracy, free choice, free will of the citizens and the candidates. It is one way of ensuring that the country continues on the trajectory of peace and socio-economic political development. Secondly, the loss of lives was most unfortunate. The shedding of blood, Solomon, arising out of an electoral process is most unfortunate and regrettable.
We've not mentioned about the tear gas of Robert Chagulanyi, Saint-Am, that were mad. Amuriat himself was also tear gassed during the electoral campaigning process. There was a general violence that was committed during the elections. I honestly had thought that the Electoral Commission would come out.
We picked interest. And engaged with Uganda Police Force, whom we ordinarily work with during elections, for it is their duty under the Constitution to maintain law and order. We picked interest.
We had scenarios where the police officers that you gave the candidates, there were fights between police officers for the Electoral Commission and the other police officers. It really looked shabby.
Yeah, let me tell you, as I said, nobody wants to organize an election and these episodes of violence play out. Violence is not one of the things we plan for. It's not. That's why we keep emphasizing the issue of every stakeholder acting within the law, acting in compliance with the law and the guidelines issued by the EC. If every stakeholder, and when I talk of stakeholders, by the way, I also mean security. You mean security. If they act in accordance with the set standards and processes under the law and the guidance of EC, and the candidates and their supporters. But you saw, Solomon, one of the things that COVID curtailed was these mass rallies. And you said, please, to avoid the spread of the pandemic, on the advice of Minister of Health, because before we actually proceeded to actualize, resume the actualization of the roadmap, we had to sit with Ministry of Health experts. They were concerned. They said, Chairman, you are going to finish the country if you people allow this election to take place in the usual way of people having mass rallies and so on. So as a solution, we agreed on observing SOPs, no mass rallies. But you saw some of the candidates. You saw yourself, Solomon. Were they compliant? Were they holding big rallies, processions along the roads? And yet we cautioned, we even called some of them to our EC headquarters. We called some of the candidates from the field and said, please, you are supposed to do this. They would walk out 10 meters from the boardroom where we have met and meet a battery of journalists and say, we are not going to accept what Byabakama and these people are saying. We must hold our campaigns as usual. What do you expect security to do? To throw their hands up in exasperation or wave a white hanky to them and say, these are elections, you have the choice to do what you want to do? No, security had to come in and contain these people. But going forward, as I said, what happened in 2020 was most unfortunate. Going forward, it is our duty as Ugandans, every stakeholder, to ensure that come 2026, I pray and hope we shall not have another scenario like COVID-19. Let us hold our elections in a peaceful, tranquil manner. And remember, whether you like the commission or not, the commission is one which is mandated by the Constitution, the supreme law of the land, to manage these elections. And we manage them in accordance with the law. So when we set out a guideline and say, conduct yourself in this manner, you are not, it is affecting you, all of you. It's not one individual, all of you. So if in law we have what we call the causative factor, assuming the candidates had been compliant, all of them had been compliant, would we have had these ugly scenes? I want to say, we would probably not have had them. We would probably not have had them if they were compliant. But because they chose to do things their own way, first of all, they did not trust the Electoral Commission. They were calling us all sorts of names. You get me? You have heard this talk, the Electoral Commission is the walking stick of Museveni.
Because he appointed you.
But you see, the law by which he appoints us was made by the representatives of this country in the Constituent Assembly. Now, if other representatives present have a different view or opinion, they are at liberty to have it amended. But for as long as the law is as it is, it will continue to operate. And secondly, go back and look and say, I think it is not the question of, even, in fact, I've told some people, I'm sorry to say this, that in Uganda, given the mindset of some of our people, even if an angel was want to come to organize these elections, they would query the angel's conduct or activities. Because some people just don't want to believe anything. As long as they are losing or realizing they're not on the winning side, they will raise anything. So Ugandans, citizens, my appeal to you is, let's work together to create sanity in our elections, to have them peaceful, not shedding blood. Why should we shed blood, really? The most popular candidate, or the candidate with the best program for the people, is determined by the voters at polling stations, not how many bodies have fallen or how many arms have been broken. It's at the polling station. So can we focus on the processes that lead us up to the polling station? And that's why we released this roadmap early.
Let's see how that works out. But there are political scholars who have suggested that Uganda's electoral laws favor the incumbent so much, right from using state resources. For example, President Museveni, he's the head of state. He's using government vehicles to go ahead. He also disguises as doing his work as the head of state to do mobilization, yet he's also politically campaigning, even before you release your roadmap. Lots of laws really in our process, in our country, favor the incumbent so much that it becomes a sail-through and rather an unleveled playing field. Do you think that some of these laws need to be revisited?
I have seen in some of these countries always referred to as having set the benchmark. like the United States of America, the incumbent, I think, uses state resources when he's campaigning or he's campaigning. Air Force One. Haven't they been losing elections, the incumbents in the US?
Because of the systems and structures that are put in their democracy and electoral processes.
Because if they are saying that, you see, the fact that the incumbent has access to state resources and so on, therefore that is already an automatic indicator that the fellow or the person is destined to win. So, but the most important thing on state resources, on the use of media, the law was amended. And it says that the state-owned media is incumbent upon every state-owned media to afford equal access to all candidates.
As spoken in the Supreme Court judgment.
Yes.
I wanted to go back to the president.
Media is a different story.
Let's talk about the president who uses state resources, vehicles, cars, everything as it is. This is the same person who is going to be competing with someone who is beginning from scratch.
Solomon, whatever happens, as I've said, governing elections and how people should conduct themselves is in the law. Even the use of state resources is by the incumbent is in the law. If the people of Uganda feel that this gives unfair advantage to the incumbent, the law can be amended. But I want you to remember one thing, that an incumbent remains the person in charge of the affairs of the country during elections or after elections. Now, are you going to create a scenario where the incumbent is demobilized, if I may call that, because we're having elections? Are we going to create a scenario where the candidate is defacilitated because we're having elections? Because at every material time, whether even if he's a candidate, he is in charge of the affairs of the country. Unless the people say, well, when we have elections...
The law can be amended so that someone takes over. If you're going to stand, just like I resign if I'm a public officer from my job and then get into the elections.
It is not for the Electoral Commission to say.
You were Ugandan.
It's for the people of Uganda.
You were
their representatives.
You were Ugandan as well. But let's talk about before the Electoral Commission really released its roadmap. We saw some people going over the country declaring their presidency. To be specific, Muhoozi Kainerugaba General went all over the country declaring, he put it out clearly, he's going to be standing, he's getting himself involved in politics, he's mobilizing. The Electoral Commission just folded its hands and kept quiet and watched all these things go on.
Solomon, I'm glad you are very acquainted with our roadmap, because at the beginning, I had you reading out some of the aspects of the roadmap. As far as we are concerned, the roadmap has not yet started actualization. We are not yet implementing the roadmap. That starts next year with the demarcation of electoral areas and the organization of polling stations. That's one. Two, speaking about presidential candidates, Section, I think, 3 of the Presidential Elections Act says a person who wants to offer himself or herself for presidency is free to consult when the time comes. That time has not come. 3, the law says Ugandans are at liberty to move from one part of the country to another unhindered, as long as you're doing that within the law. That's what the law says. If you want to move to Amolata now, you go, as long as you're complying with the law. If you want to go to any part of the country, you go, as long as you're complying with the law. So the issue is, yes, even you, Solomon, tomorrow you can start a campaign tour, not a campaign tour, because there are no campaigns yet. You can start a tour of the country. Do you know me? I'm Solomon Serwanja. I used to work with the NBS. You never know. 2026, I'm testing the waters.
You support the actions of General Muhoozi Kainerugaba?
I'm not. It is not a question of supporting the actions of any particular individual. I'm saying citizens in this country have a right to move to any part of the country.
I have seen the Electoral Commission making it clear that people should not get into campaigning before that time is due.
Yeah, because as we talk now, Solomon, we don't have any candidate we recognize. Nobody is under our charge as we speak now. Nobody is under our charge, authority, or direction as far as 2026 is concerned. Nobody. When the time comes, we shall regulate them on how they should conduct themselves for that particular activity. For now, nobody. What we have are free citizens enjoying their beautiful country called Uganda. That's all we have.
Okay, let's talk about the LC1 elections as we conclude. It's a shame that time came and we did not have the LC1 elections. That created a very big problem, especially as far as administration at the local, the grassroots level is concerned. Now, some people have thought that the absence of the LC1 elections has had a very direct impact on citizens' ability to get services and participate in their democratic rights, so to speak, and also get services better. The Electoral Commission was supposed to conduct these elections. Government said there was no money. And you extended their tenure. Parliament said, oh, things should go on as is. Will LC1 elections ever happen? Should we just give up on them and just let people be? It's just like when the presidential term ends and we don't have money, so we add the president more years as we're organizing. Basically, this country is just...
Not at all, Solomon. First of all, the presidential term is set by Article 61, Clause 2, presidential, parliamentary, local government. And that article is entrenched. It's unshakable unless it's amended or whatever it is. I think even amending it is, but anyway, let's not go into that one. So I want to assure the people that when it comes to presidential, parliamentary, the elections which are stipulated in Article 61, Clause 2, they cannot be handled the way the LOC1 terms was handled. But coming to LOC1, LOC2 elections, as well as women committees elections, it's unfortunate that we were not able to hold them. We had rolled out a program much earlier. We informed the government, we drew the budget. But it's our country. And there were challenges with the funds from government. They did not give us the funds required, so we could not hold these elections. But government, cognizant of the challenge, they decided to extend the term of these committees for 6 months. Our hope and expectation as EC is that government will be in position to avail us the funds so that we proceed to hold these elections. That's our hope, not expectation. And we're in consultations, we're in discussions with the relevant authorities and say, look, the 6 months are about to elapse. What next? So, but government is aware and they have taken in the short term some remedial steps to address that particular challenge. We hope moving forward, the funds will be available. But having said that, since government extended the term, therefore, whatever the functions of the LOC committees continued, therefore, as a consequence.
As we conclude, I wanted to speak about the aspect of, are you, as the Electoral Commission, excited about the next 3 years as we head towards the elections? How prepared are you, or you're just still waiting for funds? What is happening behind the scenes at the Electoral Commission as we build up to the elections?
Well, behind the scenes, of course, there's a lot that goes on in our, should I call it, in our offices that may not be exposed to the public through the media. We have the preparatory phases. For example, we have to get the data of existing electoral areas, existing polling stations. Secondly, we have to look at the register as it is currently. Remember, one of the critical activities towards a transparent, free, and fair election is a credible register, voters register. That is also another critical activity. Now, as you rightly pointed out from the roadmap, the updating of that register is scheduled to commence in January 2025. Now, a lot goes on, which you don't announce to the public and so on and so forth. But we are ready. We are ready. We already have the infrastructure in place. We have our offices. We have our up-country offices in all the districts of Uganda, except the 10 cities which became operational. We have not yet established a presence there, again, because of resources. But we're in discussion with Minister of Finance. We believe by the time we come to the implementation of the roadmap, that will be addressed. So a lot is going on. We are ready. We are ready, and I want to assure the people of Uganda that the Commission is always at your behest and call.
Okay. President Museveni is one of the people who has raised the red flag against the Electoral Commission that sometimes there is voter malpractice. He has put it out publicly. What do you make of President Museveni's complaints?
Yes, but he's a citizen, and he has a stake in the elections as a citizen, and also as an incumbent, as also as a leader of this country.
It's a vote of no confidence in you.
It's not. You know, every human-run system is bound to have challenges. The issue is not the challenges. The issue is how do you address them. Isn't Trump still complaining they cheated him in the elections? So the issue is, do we let these challenges override us and override the good intention of this process or not? And the Commission addresses them. For example, one of the things you remember in 2016, which people kept harping on, the late delivery of materials in some areas of Kampala. A stone thrown from the polling station. How could they be delivered very late? At every time when I came into office, that was the first question being thrown at me. I said, look, the previous Commission owned that omission or error. We also own that error, but we are taking steps. The issue is, are we going to allow it to repeat itself? And come 2021, there was no repeat of that. So every challenge that evolves, we find a solution or find a remedy. If we had a repeat of that, that's when, but on the aspect of violence, which keeps occurring, on the aspect of voter bribery, which keeps occurring, can you throw that at the doorstep of the Commission? No. The other players, they are the ones who engage in voter bribery. They're the ones who engage in violence acts. So if each one of us said, my role as Solomon as a candidate, I'm not going to give you people money, much as you push me. I'm not going to use my supporters. Please do not engage, do not attack the supporters of my opponent. Please, this is a peaceful process. This is our country. Uganda will continue to be and to remain even after elections are over. There is the bigger picture of a continued progressive Uganda when elections are over. Now, we're here after 2021, even with the challenges of COVID-19, we are here as a country. We are talking peace. So to us, that is the message we are sending across, and that is our appeal to every person in this country, to every citizen, and even non-citizens. You may not be a voter, but you are staying here. You are carrying out your businesses and so on. I don't think you want to cause a situation or a scenario which will disrupt your businesses. Ugandans, it's not everyone who eats, if I may use that term, from elections. We only send one person to parliament, member of parliament. The rest of us remain doing our usual activities. Solomon is seated here in his office with his colleagues. But if there is chaos outside there and so on, will you sit here? You know. So we want to create an environment that ensures the people of Uganda continue to live in peace, continue to live in harmony, and this is one of the most beautiful countries God created on this planet Earth. That is Uganda.
Justice Byabakama, thank you very much for speaking to us.
Thank you.
I've been speaking to the Electoral Commission Chairperson, Justice Simon Byabakama, on how the Electoral Commission, the Independent Electoral Commission, is getting ready for the 2026 elections, but also reflecting back on some of the issues that came out strongly during the 2021 elections. I'm Solomon Serwanja, and this is the Hard Questions.